Okay folks, so in lockdown like everybody else, I've taken today to tidy up the workshop, and I thought I would do a very quick workshop tour and talk to you about some of the things I've got and how I've set it all up. Predominantly I do wood turning and decorative type wood turning, so a lot of the things you'll see are all about that. But I'll talk about some of the other work I do as well. Apology from the start, all I've got is my mobile phone. I don't have any particularly flash camera kit or what have you, so the journey around the workshop will be a little bit handheld and somewhat jumpy, but try and live me with it, and I'll try not to make you too sick. So okay, let's have a little pan around the workshop as a whole, and I'll give you a sense of what's around, and then we'll look at each bit in turn. So I'll just pan around the workshop as best I can. Lucky enough to be on the side of the valley, so a reasonable view out over the valley where I live. The workshop itself is about 15 feet long by about 9 feet wide, roughly the size of a single garage, I guess. Let's go down the other end so you can see a slightly bit better. Okay, so that's the general sweep round. Back to the door. So I'll now look at a couple of areas and talk a bit about what I've got and what I do. So to the left of my lathe is really all my wood turning consumables, finishes, polishes, stains and so on. Immediately to the left of the door is a new birthday treat. I bought some Stuart Batty tools and tool handles, so I've got those mounted there, and rolls of abrasives and so on. On that shelf I keep my vacuum pump. You can just see the adapter over there for my vac chuck, and then the homemade drum chucks and so on, just on some little spindle threads, wooden spindle threads I've made, just screwed to the area above the window, as is my homemade air cleaner, which is a simple air filter in a plywood box, really, with the enclosure fan on the back. My main lathe, Vicmark 300, absolutely love it. Superb for the mostly the faceplate hollow form type work I generally do, and pretty much as a standard out of the box. You'll see the extractor there, so I've got and the airline, so I've got a Camvac 3-motor triple motor extractor, which is on the 65mm Axminster ducting all the way around the workshop, and that does a great job for me. So all my lathe chisels, the compromise I've got is all my lathe chisels are in a little roll cab, so that allows me to keep all those nicely neat and tidy. I'll happily put a couple of photos up, but to give you a sense, so they're all just sat in there. Above that is a little engineer's tool chest that I made recently on the wood rat. So I'll show you the wood rats we pan round, and I use that really just to keep the better quality hand tools, and then things like all my carving burrs and so on all sitting there, and so they neatly pull out as a drawer at a time, allowing me to do that. Above there, moving round, just some little sort of samples for different shapes and things, and where I do my airbrushing, so I can see what happens if you blend different colours together. So I keep a couple of little plywood boards that I can just mask up and put some sample panels on there. Moving around the workshop, so there's my workbench, simple central vise. It's not really set up as a cabinet maker's workbench, but it works very well for me, with loads of storage underneath. The top is actually a piece of it's the 40mm IKEA kitchen worktop. Seems to work fairly well. Behind the bench, which I can get to when I pull out the roll cab that's in the area below the tool tray, there's a whole load of tubes that I keep things like inlay and stringing and so on. So they all sit in that area underneath the tool tray, so the space isn't wasted. To the left of the bench, you see I've got my bench hooks and shooting boards and all that sort of stuff in a little rack. Moving round is my whetstone sharpener that I can lift out when I need it, and all the other sharpening, sort of diamond stones and waterstones and so on, will sit in the little drawer unit to the side. Behind that, the hardware. You'll see on the side of the bench some white shelving, also right shelving bracketry. I've got a little workbench that clips in there, so when I'm sat at my comfy chair doing the carving, it's sort of at lap height rather than a slightly higher workbench height. Standard Axminster bandsaw, and then 12-inch disc sander. My pillar drill, which is made by a company called Atlas. I think they do mainly mining equipment, and that is the smallest thing they make, but it's made from some of the offcuts of the parts bin of the mining kit, because it's built like the proverbial brick outhouse. Beneath that, and I've got a number of school science benches that I use for sort of the benches around the side of the workshop, just for putting things down and general working. Underneath there's the tools I use less. The compromise I've got with the space I've got is I've got to lift them out when I need them. So under there's a planer, there's a bookbinding press for veneering, there's a scroll saw, a 12-inch chop saw, a trend router table, and a number of other bits and pieces. So back wall is mainly the sort of tool board, so I've got the tools reasonably well organised and I can grab them when I need them. So coming back towards the sort of the lathe end, if you like, there's my bench grinder. So it's a cruising slow speed bench grinder with a fine and coarse CBN stone on it. Absolutely superb, love that. A set of drawers with some offcuts of small metal, and so, you know, just some brass and aluminium and so on. So they're my metal scraps. In the corner here, there's the air compressor tucked right in the corner, which is ducted or piped all the way around the workshop, so there's air points all around. There's my little lathe that I can use for either demoing, or my little lad who's only 8 loves turning on that lathe. It's a bit more accessible for him, so it's on a little wheeled drawer unit that can just pull out, and either pull it out to use, or I pull that out when I want to stand and use the wood rat, which is on that wall. Dry whiteboard. So coming back round, I've got a little Axminster SC4 metal lathe and vertical mill combo. I don't do a huge amount of metal turning, but for the odd little brackets and small little projects that are often mounting items for my woodworking, rather than metal projects in of themselves. But that's absolutely lovely to have, and a really nice easy lathe to use. Just you know, work and turn it on. You can see a silver curtain hanging to the left, so normally there's a curtain over that just to stop the dust from the wood turning landing on the lathe, and obviously, you know, with the oily lathe clogging it up. The silver curtain is actually a Riley snooker table cover, which is perfect. It seems a really nice, tough, rip-proof cover with weighted corners, so it does a great job just going over there and clipping along the shelf at the top, which turned around and back to the door on the way in. So hope this has been a interesting little pan round. Hopefully you haven't got too seasick on the way round, and wish you all a safe and happy lockdown, and enjoy your woodworking while you're doing it. Okay, bye.